In the last Linleys Garden Railway update, I tried to cover most of the planning work of the next phase of the development of the Linleys station, but as I realised following the completion of that video, there was more of the planning and design work to go over before cracking on with the practical construction work. Welcome to another Linleys Garden Railway video. Hi, I'm Warren Brand, and in this update I'll cover three main development aspects of the main station at Linleys. Firstly, I need to confirm some of the details about the positioning and format of the operating controls, which will mimic a signal box for that area. I plan to have the signal box controls mounted on the outside of the garden studio shed just here. Years back when I built the studio, I included most of the below ground ducting ready for the railway. As all of the control cables will come back to this point, I need to be careful with the design and assembly of the bundles of wires for each aspect. More of that in a moment. Operations will be monitored and controlled while sitting right about here, facing the railway, with clear views of the whole station, the approaches, the platforms and the crossover junctions. With the chair placed on the side of the path here, the signalman can easily approach it, sit down and leave to go around the garden. The control box, with all the electronic modules in, will be mounted on the side of the studio building, mostly out of sight. I will probably arrange the mimic panel and the control switches in a box, so that it can pivot out on some sort of arm when in use, but otherwise can be pushed out of the way and out of sight when not in use. I hope you've seen some earlier Linleys Garden Railway videos in the various playlists in the channel, but if you haven't, Linleys Garden Railway is a G-scale or Gauge 1 railway layout in my garden. I have developed a DLC system for managing train movements. Please look at previous videos if you've just found my channel, which will explain more about the control and management systems, as well as other development projects. The next thing to plan, in outline at least, is the arrangement of the block sections of track. At the basics first. The station has 4 through running lines, that's a pair of up lines and a pair of downs. The inner 2 are the suburban lines, which have return loops effectively joining these 2 lines to form a continuous circuit, but running out of the main view of the signal box. The suburban up goes off around the back of the shed and returns to form the suburban down. The main line goes off through the tunnel and on the way around the outside of the garden and eventually returns all the way around to rejoin this platform from behind the studio building. The main line down departs from the platform nearest the grass and curves around behind the studio building, on around the garden, and eventually then returns to the platform from the other end. The suburban down dives around the back of the studio shed, running next to the main down for a little way before winding around to pass through Woodgate Crescent Station. From there, the line returns up behind the studio and forms the suburban up line at Linleys Station. there will be 2 diamond crossovers included eventually, but these will be a later development. With this arrangement of lines established, I need to confirm the exact positions of the block sections. This is important to decide at this stage, as this will then lead to the decision about the number of electronic control modules to include in the signal box, the number and design of cables, the locations and runs for the cables, positions of signals, and train position sensors. All this needs to be sorted before I set to work with any more construction work. Each block section of track has to be at least 6 meters long. A bit longer is fine, but shorter causes interlocking difficulties. The ends of the station platforms mark sensible positions where block sections will end. This then begins to set out where some of the block sections will be. The loop around the back of the shed will come under the control of this signal box area, and this track length divides up nicely into 2, with block sections of about the right length. The block sections are already defined as part of the other loop, which is managed by the Woodgate Crescent Station signal box area. Trains leaving the suburban down platform will leave the control of the signal box having been handed over to the management of the box at Woodgate Crescent Station. Trains from Woodgate Crescent Station will be offered up to Linleys Station box for the up suburban platform. Block sections for the main running lines need to be set out too. An added complication to the main blocks and track control is the inclusion of a bay siding line between the main up and down lines, just out of the main view of the signal box on the other side of the tunnel just here. I will include a 2.5 metre long bay siding which will take trains off the main line as they exit the tunnel. Off the bay siding, trains can return back towards Linleys Station via the main down line. There's no provision for loco runarounds, so the train type will need to be double-ended. The bay siding will form its own block, extending into the main running lines. Block sections will then be formed like this, with other blocks in the distance out of the control of Linleys Station box. For ongoing reference, I'll number the sections and their relevant train signals like this. The points will be labelled with letters, but these are slightly more complicated as they are grouped in sets of points which will work together, so they will be subcoded accordingly. With all this now decided, I next need to work out the details of the bundles of wires which link everything together, more specifically the installation locations and routes around the trackbed and through the below ground conduits. Each block section needs its own dedicated set of wires, bundled together in a bespoke wiring loom. In a later video, I'll explain how I design and create these bundles of cables, so look out for that in the future. Some parts of the cable bundles will go through the below ground conduit pipes, whilst others will be above ground laid in the shallow grooves in the trackbed. An earlier video explains some of this approach. I've already installed these below ground cable pipes ready for use. This one will contain all the cables going to the signal box and joins up to a below ground intersection here. From this intersection point, cables can emerge easily underneath the track and then run along where needed to the various block sections. Similarly, from this intersection, there's a main link back to the main conduit pipe system, with another intersection here below the path, another long link below the grass over to the far side of the garden. I devised all of this years ago and have been slowly including the infrastructure needed over time. There are several other system elements to include, but I'll go over the details of these in separate videos. For example, the shed door conflicts with the suburban loop line, so I'll include some interlocking with the door and the train management system, Also, I need to develop a new DLC module to manage the return running of a train from the bay siding. Now that I've worked out all the cabling details, I can set to work with some of the practical aspects of this. I have cable grooves to cut first. I'll get all of these done before working on the station platform construction, just in case the platforms make it more difficult to access the areas I need. I'll leave this update here for this time. Next time I'll be able to show you how the cable grooves have gone in and the beginning of the station platform construction. With the divergent levels of the platform surfaces between the up main and the up suburban lines, and similarly for the down main and the down suburban, I'll have to be careful with the concreting of these platforms. Until next time, thanks for watching and bye for now.